Every human fear explained. Let's get right into it. Number 1. Fear of heights, acrophobia. If you've ever stood on a balcony, looked down, and suddenly felt like your knees turned into jello, congratulations, your body just gave you a free trial of acrophobia. It's not just you. Pretty much every human brain comes pre-installed with this don't fall to your death software. And honestly, it's one of evolution's greatest hits. Think about it. Our ancestors who weren't afraid of cliffs? They didn't exactly make it to the sequel. The ones who thought, pfft, gravity is just a suggestion ended up as mammoth food. So your fear of heights is basically your DNA yelling, step back, genius, you can't fly. But here's the weird twist. You're not just afraid of falling. Sometimes you're afraid you might actually jump. Yep, psychologists call this the high place phenomenon, that fleeting, intrusive thought. What if I just jumped? Isn't suicidal. It's your brain testing the emergency brakes. Your brain's like, wouldn't it be hilarious if I ruined everything right now? And then your survival instincts scream back. Number? Bad idea. So next time you feel dizzy on a tall building, remember, it's not weakness. It's your brain running safety drills. Annoying, yes. Life-saving, absolutely. Number 2. Fear of darkness. Nyctophobia. Ah, the dark. The OG fear. Long before horror movies, humans were already terrified of the night. Why? Because darkness was basically a free buffet for predators. Lions, leopards, wolves, none of them needed night vision goggles. But us? Our eyes in the dark are about as useful as a cracked iPhone screen. That's why your brain goes into overdrive when the lights go out. Every creak in the house suddenly becomes a serial killer. That shadow in the corner? Obviously a demon. And the pile of laundry on your chair? Clearly a monster auditioning for a low-budget horror flick. Kids are especially prone to this because, well, evolution wired them to stay close to mom and dad when things get sketchy. But adults aren't off the hook either. Fear of the dark is deeply baked into our psychology. Even if you know there's nothing lurking in your room, your brain still whispers, but what if there is? So, the next time you sprint to the bed after turning off the lights, don't feel silly. You're just reenacting 200,000 years of human history, starring you as the anxious cave dweller. Number 3. Fear of holes. Trypophobia. If you're one of those people who feel physically nauseous looking at a lotus seed pod, congratulations, you've unlocked the bizarre achievement called Trypophobia. No, it's not officially in the psychology handbooks as a real phobia, but try telling that to your skin when it starts crawling. Why would a bunch of tiny, harmless holes make your brain freak out? Well, science has a theory. Our ancestors learned to associate clusters of holes with danger. Think diseased skin, infected wounds, parasitic infestations. You get the picture. Basically, your brain sees a lotus pod and screams, "Plague, stay away!" Even though it's literally just salad garnish. And the internet hasn't helped. Photoshop a few hole patterns onto someone's face. And congratulations. You've just traumatized millions of people. Some researchers even suggest it's a hypersensitivity to high contrast patterns. Your brain hates the visual static and interprets it as a threat. So, if you've ever scrolled online and gagged at hole memes, don't worry, you're not alone. You're just a human, with a built-in grossometer. And let's be honest, holes are great in donuts, not in your skin. Number 4. Fear of public speaking. Glossophobia. Now here's a fun fact. More people say they fear public speaking than death. Which means, at a funeral, they'd rather be in the coffin than giving the eulogy. That's comforting, isn't it? So why is public speaking so terrifying? Well, blame your caveman brain again. Back in tribal times, if a group of people were all staring at you, it usually meant you were about to get exiled or eaten. Being judged by the group was a literal survival threat. Fast forward to today, and your brain still treats a room full of PowerPoint zombies like a firing squad. Your heart races, your hands sweat, your voice cracks, and you think everyone notices. Spoiler, half the audience is just scrolling Instagram under the table. But your brain doesn't care. It goes into full red alert mode. As if forgetting your lines is equivalent to forgetting how to run from a bear. Here's the kicker. Fear of public speaking is also a fear of vulnerability. You're putting your ideas, your mistakes, and your shaky knees out for everyone to see. That's why even confident people sometimes melt into a puddle of stage fright. So, next time you're choking on your own words during a presentation, just remember, your body thinks you're auditioning for survival in the Hunger Games. Number 5. Fear of rejection. Rejection. The emotional equivalent of a slap in the face, except it lingers in your brain way longer. Whether it's a date gone wrong, a job interview ghosting you, or your group chat ignoring your meme, rejection feels like someone just deleted your save file in life. Why does it hurt so much? Evolution, of course. Humans survived in tribes. If your tribe rejected you, congratulations. You just unlocked solo mode against predators, starvation, and general doom. So, your brain evolved to treat rejection as a life or death crisis. That's why being left on read feels oddly like being left to die. But here's the twist. Rejection lights up the same parts of your brain as physical pain. That's right, your heartbreak is basically your brain saying, ow. So when people tell you to get over it, remember, it's not just emotional, it's neurological. And because we're clever creatures, we invented new forms of rejection in modern times. Tinder swipes, social media unfollows, and of course, being ghosted. Evolution didn't prepare us for those. But our brains still panic like it's the Stone Age. Rejection isn't just social, it's biological. So, if you're terrified of rejection, congratulations. You're just human. Or maybe you're just really bad at texting back. Either way, same result. Number 6. Fear of judgment. Social anxiety. You know that awkward feeling when you walk into a room and immediately think everyone's staring at you? Newsflash. They're probably not. But your brain doesn't care, it's already sweating like you're on trial at The Hague. The fear of judgment is social anxiety at its finest. Your brain is wired to assume that people are constantly analyzing your every move, like a 247 panel of Simon Cowell's. Why? Because back in tribal society, fitting in was everything. Step out of line, and boom, goodbye, mammoth steak privileges. Here's the kicker. We massively overestimate how much people notice us. Psychologists call this the spotlight effect. You think your mismatched socks are ruining your reputation, but guess what? Everyone else is too busy worrying about their own socks. Still, the fear is real. Public embarrassment, awkward silences, that one person laughing during your presentation, it all fuels the nightmare. And social media? That's basically judgment on steroids. One bad tweet, and suddenly you're trending for all the wrong reasons. So if you're scared of being judged, remember, most people are way too self-absorbed to notice your mistakes. Which is kind of freeing, right? No one's watching, except maybe your mom. And she's definitely judging. Number 7. Fear of failure. Atychiphobia. Failure. Humanity's least favorite teacher. You know, the teacher who smells like coffee and disappointment and keeps handing back your test with giant red X's. That's basically how your brain treats failure. Why do we hate it so much? Simple. Failure used to mean danger. If you failed to hunt, you starved. If you failed to run, you got eaten. And if you failed to impress the tribe, you were voted off the island permanently. In short, failure wasn't just embarrassing, it was fatal. Fast forward to now, and failure means messing up your presentation, bombing an exam, or accidentally sending that text to the wrong group chat. Not life-threatening, but your brain reacts like you've doomed your bloodline. The sweaty palms, the racing heart, the mental screaming, it's all part of the package. The real kicker? Fear of failure often stops us from even trying. Your brain convinces you, don't risk it. Better safe than sorry. Which is hilarious, because staying safe often guarantees the very failure you're afraid of. Nice one, brain. So yes, fear of failure sucks. But it's also a sign your brain still thinks life is one big survival game. And honestly, failing in front of your boss isn't as bad as failing in front of a saber-toothed tiger. Perspective helps. Number 8. Fear of missing out. FOMO. Here's a fun modern upgrade. Back in the day, humans feared missing out on food, shelter, or a potential mate. Today, You fear missing out on Becky's brunch photos and the latest Marvel trailer. Progress, people. FOMO is that gnawing anxiety that someone, somewhere, is having a better time than you. And thanks to social media, you now get a 247 highlight reel of everyone else's perfect life. Of course, deep down, you know those posts are curated nonsense, but your brain still goes, why am I not at that rooftop party with artisanal cocktails? Neurologically, FOMO ties back to dopamine, the same brain chemical that makes gambling addictive. Every notification, every ping, every like is a tiny hit of dopamine, and missing out feels like missing your fix. Evolutionary psychologists think it's tied to survival instincts. If the tribe was doing something without you, you risked being left behind. So yes, FOMO makes you check your phone every 3 seconds like it's a lifeline. But here's the punchline. While you're busy fearing what you're missing out on, you're actually missing out on your own life. Irony at its finest. Number 9. Fear of pain. Algophobia. Pain is the body's way of saying, hey genius, stop doing that. And yet, our fear of pain is often worse than the pain itself. You know that moment at the dentist's office when the drill hasn't even touched your tooth, but your brain is already screaming in Dolby surround sound? Yeah, that's algophobia in action. Here's the deal. Pain exists for survival. It's your body's fire alarm. Touch a hot stove, ouch. Lesson learned. Step on a leg, ouch. Humanity's greatest design flaw exposed. But fearing pain too much can backfire. You might avoid necessary things like exercise, medical checkups, or finally getting that cavity filled. All because your brain is catastrophizing. On the flip side, pain is subjective. Two people can experience the same stubbed toe, but one shakes it off while the other is writing their will. Why? Brain chemistry, genetics, and past experiences. It's not just the nerve sits the story your brain tells you about what that pain means. So yes, we fear pain, but without it, you'd never know you were hurting yourself. In a twisted way, pain is your body's love language. Harsh, inconvenient, but ultimately keeping you alive. Romantic, right? Number 10. Fear of aging. Gerascophobia. Aging. The one fear you can't escape, no matter how many anti-wrinkle creams you buy. Gerascophobia is basically your brain rebelling against the idea of becoming old, frail, and irrelevant. It's not just about crow's feet or gray hair sits, the creeping dread of decline, dependency, and eventually, the final curtain. Evolutionarily, this fear makes sense. In the wild, aging meant becoming slower, weaker, and easier prey. Your survival odds tanked the moment you couldn't sprint as fast as the guy next to you, so the brain wired itself to resist aging, even though modern medicine has stretched the human lifespan well beyond what nature intended. Today, the fear of aging shows up in more subtle ways. Obsessing over birthdays, panicking at the first sign of back pain, or blowing half your paycheck on age-defying serums that are basically overpriced moisturizer. Society doesn't help. Of course, every ad screams that youth is the only currency that matters. But here's the kicker. Fighting aging is the most unwinnable battle of all time. No matter what, time collects its rent. The trick is realizing that aging isn't just decay, it's also experience, wisdom, and the ability to laugh at people still terrified of turning 30. Number 11. Fear of ghosts. Phasmophobia. Ghosts, the ultimate freeloaders of human imagination. They don't pay rent, they don't clean up after themselves, and yet they somehow manage to terrify us in every dark hallway. Phasmophobia is basically your brain saying, I know science says there's nothing there, but what if science is lying? This fear taps into one of the oldest survival instincts. Don't mess with the unknown. For our ancestors, the dark was full of predators, disease, and random things that went bump in the night. Fast forward a few millennia, and your brain hasn't updated the software. Now, every creaky floorboard, flickering light, or cold draft becomes Exhibit A in your personal horror movie. What's hilarious is that ghosts are universal. Every culture has its own spooky legends, from banshees to hungry spirits to that one uncle who still haunts family reunions. Ghosts are basically humanity's shared coping mechanism for death, the unknown that none of us can explain. So, Instead of admitting we don't know what happens when we die, we create invisible roommates who slam doors and whisper our names at 3 a.m. Psychologically, fear of ghosts is a mashup of nyctophobia, fear of the dark, thanatophobia, fear of death, and your overactive imagination. It's less about Casper and more about your brain saying, I don't like not knowing, so let's invent something terrifying to fill the gap. So the next time you hear a noise in the dark, don't worry, it's probably not a ghost. It's just your brain, playing hide and scream with itself. Comforting, right? That's all for today. I'll be making similar videos in the future. Subscribe to see them.